السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله ذي الملك والملكوت والعز والجبروت الحي الذي لا يموت، ثم الصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على خير خلق الله محمد بن عبد الله الذي أرسله الله رحمة للعالمين، ففتح الله به القلوب وأنار به العقول وفتح به أعينا عميا وآذانا صما وقلوبا غلفا، صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته وتبعهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. أيها الأحبة, tonight inshallah we shall begin one of our episodes of our Islamic history that very few Muslims know about, and this is the history of the Muslims in Sicily, the history of the Muslims in Italy. This is a history that has been forgotten. The Muslims reached Sicily. The Muslims reached the seat, almost near the seat of the Vatican in Rome. The Muslims, when they conquered this Sicily, they reached as far as Switzerland and remained there for decades. This is our part of our history that is forgotten. Ikhwani fillah. Ikhwani fillah, the first point we shall make, is it better to say Islamic history or Muslim history? Is it better to call it Islamic history or Muslim history, or it's the same thing? It's the same thing. Now, when we listen to the media sometimes, they blame Islam. We say to them, do not blame Islam, blame the Muslims. So there's a difference between the religion and the people. Are we together? The religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure, it does not change. Inna deena inda Allahi al-Islam. Al-yawma akmaltum lakum deenakum. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-Islam deena. The deen is pure, but our actions have defects. So I think it's better, wallahu alam, al-ilm indallah, to call it the history of the Muslims and not Islamic history, because the history of the Muslims covers the positives and the negatives. The second part, ikhwani fillah, what is the importance of studying history? Is it important to study history? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, نَحْنُ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ. We are going to give you the best of stories. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, فَقْصُصِ الْقَصَص. Give them the stories. You look at the Quran, the book of Allah Azza wa Jal, it is divided into aqidah, into fiqh, and into stories of the previous nations, so that we can take an example and we can learn from the lessons that they took. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet alayhi salatu salam, وَاتْلُوا عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَيْ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَ قُرْبَانًا فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاذْكُرْ أَخَا عَادٍ إِذْ أَنذَرَ قَوْمَهُ بِالْأَحْقَافِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us many times that we should look at the history of the people who passed away. As far as Adam alayhi salam, as far as the two children of Adam alayhi salam, as far as Musa, Isa, all these stories, they have been mentioned in the Quran for you to enjoy them or for you to take lessons from them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the story of Musa alayhi salam. You know the seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam very well. The second prophet you know most about from the day he was born until the day he passed away is the Prophet Musa alayhi salam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you this story, why is it? فَاقْصُصِ الْقَصَصَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. So that you can take lessons, you can reflect, and do not make the same mistakes. Do not reinvent the wheel of the previous nations. So history is very important, and there's no excuse for me and you, ikhwani fillah, to make the same mistakes that's going over in history. We have looked at the history of Andalus in detail, and we have seen how people, Muslims, when they conquer an area, the people, they revert to Islam. They accept the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. But the Europeans or the Byzantines, when they did the Reconquista, when they took over Andalus, when they took over Sicily, as we're going to study, they do not only colonize the place, they expel the people who were native to that place. Same thing that is happening right now in Palestine, in Gaza and in the West Bank. They not only take the land, they also expel the people, like the Nakba of 1948 and the Naqsa of 1967. So history is very important for us to learn. Ikhwani fillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألف لام ميم غلبت الروم في أدنى الأرض وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون في بضع السنين لله الأمر من قبل ومن بعد ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون بنصر الله ينصر من يشاء وهو العزيز الرحيم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Alif Lam Mim. غلبت الروم. The Romans have been defeated. في أدنى الأرض, in a land that is close to you, the land of Yemen. وهم من بعد غلبهم سيغلبون. And after they have been defeated, they will come later on to be victorious. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is a nation that is known as the Romans, and there's a nation that defeated these Romans. Which nation defeated the Romans? Which nation? Surah Al-Rum defeated the Romans, Muhammad? The Persians. So these two superpowers, ikhwani fillah, were there for millennia, not centuries, millennia, thousands and thousands of years. The two superpowers of the world are from the Western countries, the Roman Empire, and from the East, the Persian Empire. These are the two great empires. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings His light. He sends the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he comes with this nur of tawheed, this nur of aqidah, to remove the people from the jahiliyyah, to remove the people from the dark ages that the Roman Empire and the Europeans were going through. These people were threatened by that. So they set out to attack the land of the Muslims. The year 8 of the Hijri calendar, there was a battle between the Muslims and the Roman Empire, the Battle of Mu'tah. The year 8 of the Hijri calendar. 3,000 Muslims versus an army of maybe 100,000 plus from the Roman Empire. The Muslims were led by 4 people. The first one was the person who was known as the son of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before Surah Al-Ahzab, the verses of Surah Al-Ahzab was revealed. Who is this man? Who was known as the son of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Then it was abandoned. Zayd ibn Haritha. There's Zayd ibn Haritha and there's Zayd ibn Thabit, who is Ansari, is a different Zayd. So this is Zayd ibn Haritha. He was the first leader of the Muslims in this battle of Mu'tah. The second leader is the cousin of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the one who will fly in Jannah with 2 wings. Who is he? Who performed Hijrah to Medina and to Habasha. He came to East Africa. Who is this? The cousin of Prophet Muhammad was here with us in East Africa. Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. He was the second leader. The Prophet ﷺ said, if Zayd is killed, the leader is Ja'far. Then if Ja'far is killed, the leader is Abdullah ibn Rawaha. All these 3 were killed. And the Muslims, they chose Sayfullah al-Maslul to be the new leader of the Muslims in the battle of Mu'tah. 3,000 versus an army of 100,000. They chose Khalid ibn Walid radiyallahu an, the sword of Allah that has never been defeated. And it's not proper for the sword of Allah to be defeated. And he fought this battle in the year 8 of the Hijri calendar. This is one of the first battles we fought with the superpower at the time, which is the Byzantine Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire. The year 9 of the Hijri calendar came. The last battle of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is the last battle of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam participated in. That's mentioned in Surah At-Tawbah, Tabuk. That's the last battle of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He went to meet the army of the Byzantines, also in the area of Tabuk that is near now the border of Saudi and Jordan. This is year 9. The Prophet ﷺ passed away in the year 11 of the Hijri calendar. The leader of the Muslims who became who? After the Prophet. All of you know this. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he was a leader for only 2.5 years. And some people will consider him a weak leader. But subhanallah, the first thing he did was to send the army of Usama bin Zayd that was commanded by Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to go meet the Romans. The second thing he did after that, he fought the Murtaddin, the Arabs who apostated. Every Arab tribe, or many Arab tribes, or quite a number of them, they said, we have left the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal. Only Medina, Mecca, and a small village known as Hajar remained upon Islam. People left Islam the same way they entered, in droves. But this man, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he fought the Murtaddin. Then he declared war on the 2 superpowers at the time. He fought the Persians and he fought the Romans. In the Persians, the great battle at the time of Umar ibn Khattab, the battle of Qadisiyah. We shall read this later inshallah, read by Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. And this other side, the battle of Yarmouk, led by Khalid bin Walid, Abu Ubaidah Amr ibn Jarrah, and others, Yazid ibn Abi Sufyan. So this is a battle that occurred between the Muslims in the year 12. The Muslims started conquering Sham. They took conquering Sham. When you hear Sham, the land of Sham, it's 4 countries currently: Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Palestine. So from the year 12 to the year 19 of the Hijri calendar, the Muslims were conquering towards the west, the land of Syria. All this land has been spread Islam. Also, the year 12 to the year 19, they are conquering the east. They're conquering the other empire, the Persian Empire. The Muslims were fighting 2 empires at the same time. Look at the glory of Islam. Look how the bravery and courage of the Muslims were. 2 superpowers, and a state that was never known. The Arabs had no history. Muslims, they came with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. نحن قوم أعزنا الله بالإسلام ومهما ابتغينا عزة بغير ما أذلنا من غير ما عزنا الله أذلنا الله. Whatever we get from our glory is because of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal and the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. We were able to conquer these 2, or take most of the land from these 2 empires. The messenger who was sent with a letter to from Prophet Muhammad to Kisra, the leader of the Persians, he sent a letter by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet alayhi salam addresses him in a proper manner. But this man, out of his arrogance, this leader of Persia, he takes the letter of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he tears it into pieces. He tears it into pieces. When this news reaches the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, مَزَّقَ اللَّهُ مُلْكَهُمْ كَمَا مَزَّقُوا الرِّسَالَةِ. May Allah destroy and tear off their kingdom the same way they tore off the letter of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Khani fillah, the Muslims defeated and utterly conquered the Persian Empire, Iraq, Iran, all these stans that you know, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Tajik, all these stans that you know, they conquered it in just a period of about 14 years. From the year 12 of the Hijri calendar, by the year 26 of the Hijri calendar, when their last leader, Yazajard, was killed. So the Muslims conquered. But its other side, the Roman Empire, it's not easy. Prophet ﷺ says in hadith, I have to confirm the authenticity, that every time a horn is cut from them, a new horn grows in place. So the Muslims conquered from the Byzantines, they conquered Sham. That is Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. Year 20 of the Hijri calendar came. A person called Amr ibn Abil As conquered which country? Amr ibn al-As conquered which country? وَاسْلَمُوا أَيُّهَا الْمُسْلِمُونَ. The country of the pharaohs, or the country of Fir'aun, is which country? They conquered Egypt. After you conquer Sham and Palestine, the next level is, or the next stage is, the Muslims conquered Egypt. So Egypt is also following the Byzantine Empire. So it's a war between Muslims and the superpower at the time, the Byzantines. We're taking from their land. The year 28 of the Hijri calendar comes. The Muslims have noticed that these Byzantines keep attacking them because they have ships. They own ships. They have a navy. So they keep attacking the coastal cities, the coastal towns of the Muslims, killing Muslims, pillaging, taking Muslims as slaves, causing a lot of fasad. So Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan radiallahu anhu, he writes a letter to the Khalifa of the Muslims in the year 28 of the Hijri calendar, who was Uthman ibn Affan. Uthman ibn Affan is the only person in history who married 2 daughters of a prophet. No other person married 2 daughters of a prophet. He married a daughter of Prophet ﷺ who passed away, then he married the second one. He is the only person that we know of that has property in Saudi. You go to near the Prophet's mosque, you'll find Waqf li Uthman ibn Affan. He has a bank account. The only Sahabi with a bank account right now is Uthman ibn Affan. He gave a lot of sadaqah for the benefit of the ummah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he writes a letter, Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, to Uthman ibn Affan. He says, Uthman, we need to have, as Muslims, we need to have our own navy. Umar ibn Khattab had refused because he feared that the Muslims will enter a new field that they did not have experience in. We are from the desert. What do we know about battles in the water? He passed the Umar. He was assassinated, as you know, by Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi. Uthman became the leader. He did not rush until Muawiyah convinced him, the year 28. The Muslims immediately after they got a navy, they conquered one of the islands in the Mediterranean, a very important island that is known as Cyprus. Cyprus became an island from the islands of the Muslims. So this is continuation of our battles between us and the Byzantine Empire. Then the year 43 of the Hijri calendar, the Muslims conquered Tunisia. And Tunisia became known as Africa. Africa in the history books, Ifriqiya, is this land of Tunisia. And within it, the famous city of Qayrawan was built by the great leader of the Muslims, Uqba ibn Nafi', one of the greatest generals in Islamic history. So the Muslims conquered in the year 43 of the Hijri calendar, they conquered this country of Tunisia. The year 52 of the Hijri calendar came, a very important event. The Prophet ﷺ says in an authentic hadith, لَتَفْتَحُنَّ قُنْسْطَنْطِينِيَّةً فَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرُ أَمِيرُهَا وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشِ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشِ. Says, O Muslims, you shall conquer the land of Constantinople. You shall conquer the city of Constantinople. A blessed leader is the leader that conquers it, and a blessed army is that army that conquers it. So the very first attempt by the Muslims to try conquering the capital city of the superpower of our enemy, of the Byzantines at the time, was the year 52 of the Hijri calendar. The leader of the Muslims was Yazid ibn Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan ibn Harb, who later on became the Khalifa or the leader of the overall Muslim Ummah. So in the year 52 of the Hijri calendar, the Muslims, and in the army were many Sahaba. Amongst them, the famous one who died on the border of Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari passed away in the border, right outside Constantinople, which later on was conquered by Muhammad al-Fatih in the year 857 of the Hijri calendar, the year 1453 of the Christian calendar. So the Muslims, they tried conquering this capital city of the Byzantines. More collision between us and the Byzantines, the Roman Empire. Are you together? Some people have had of late, and it's an opinion that is to be rejected. They say that the Prophet ﷺ said that the blessed leader is the leader who conquers Constantinople, and the blessed army that conquers that army, that is going to happen at the end of times, when we Muslims conquer Istanbul for the second time. It's not all those previous attempts, no. That is their understanding. Are you together? They're saying the leader who conquered Muhammad al-Fatih is not the one who is mentioned in this hadith. Sometimes you look at it, you can see there's politics involved. Are you together? But if you go back, is that the understanding of the Sahaba of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Tabi'in, who are the best generation and the best generation that came them after them? They understood that this hadith applied also to them, or to the very first person who conquered the capital city of Byzantine. Hence, they went out with their lives at stake and their property at stake to try conquering this city of Constantinople. So the year 52 of the Hijri calendar, Muslims, they tried conquering Constantinople. And they continued conquest of the entire North Africa. All this property was being owned by the Byzantines, but us were taken from the Byzantines, the same way we took from the Persians. Islam became the superpower at the time, and for many centuries thereafter, we were the most powerful empire that were feared by everyone until the Mongolians came and they humiliated us. Are you together? Now, the next stage, Ikhwani Fillah, after we have conquered Africa, we want to make this message of light reach the next area of the world, and that is Europe. And that's why we entered and we conquered Andalus. We conquered Muslim Spain and Portugal at the hand of Musa ibn Nusayr and Tariq ibn Ziyad, the year 92 of the Hijri calendar. Are you together? Then this Mediterranean now is an important water body. Europe is just across Africa. The only thing that divides Europe and Africa from the north is just this sea that's known as the Mediterranean Sea. We want to make sure that this message reaches also Italy or France. We reached even South France. Italy now, there are many states in Italy. There is Sicily, Sardinia, Genoa, Naples, Florence. All these are independent states of Italy. How do we make sure the message reaches there? Number two, these people keep on attacking our coasts every time. Stealing, killing, pillaging, causing fasad. We have to go to the next stage and conquer one of the areas to protect the Muslims. Number one, and number two, to make sure the message reaches the lands of Europe. Right together. So the biggest island, Ikhwani Fillah, in this sea, the world at that time, Ikhwani Fillah, was only 3 continents. How many continents were there during most of history before America was discovered? America was not discovered by Christopher Columbus. That is the biggest nonsense in history. Someone tells you Columbus is the first one to discover America, tell them that is your history. That is nonsense. The continents were only three: Asia, Africa, and Europe. Islam has reached Asia. We've taken over the entire Arabian Peninsula, the entire of Persia we've taken. It has taken most of Asia. It has reached Africa, North Africa at least. Now the next stage is Europe. These are the three continents. Now for us to cross over, we've tried Andalus, Alhamdulillah. Now the other island, the biggest island on the Mediterranean is this island of Sicily. This is the biggest island. And this island, is in the middle. It's between Africa and Europe, more so towards the side of Europe. The difference between Tunisia and Sicily is about 200 kilometers. Italy and Sicily is about 2-3 kilometers. So conquering this, you control the entire Mediterranean. Number two, Sicily, is also very fertile. Most of the wheat and the food that was being used in the Roman Empire and later on the Byzantine Empire was coming from Sicily and from Egypt. These two places were food baskets for the entire of Europe and for the Roman Empire. So we as Muslims, how are we going to reach Sicily? How are we going to conquer it? And the Muslims, they set out to conquer Sicily, and they conquered it in the year 212 of the Hijri calendar, and they established a civilization that is present till today. This is the closest that the Muslims reached the land of Rome, the capital city or the seat of Catholicism, the seat of the Vatican City. In the forthcoming lecture, we shall look at the events of the Islamic world in the year 132 of the Hijri calendar that changed the Islamic world for all of eternity. Before the year 132, the Muslims had tried conquering Sicily 8 times, 9 times, 8 times at least. They tried. Musa ibn Nusayr sent his own son to try conquering Sicily, this great man. Musa ibn Nusayr, as you are aware, he wanted to conquer Constantinople. The Muslims had failed from the east, so he wanted to conquer it from the west, to conquer, to take Spain, then France, then Germany, then it goes until Bulgaria, until which is Constantinople from the other side. So he tried that. So another idea came to them that also this path of Sicily can take us closer to conquer Constantinople. Constantinople had a very important part because of that hadith that gave them a lot of morale to be the blessed army that was mentioned by Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the events of the year 132 of the Hijri calendar that was spoken about before, and that is the fall of the Umayyads and the coming of the Abbasids, changed Islamic history for all of eternity. And this is what we shall look at later, and how the Muslims, and who is that great scholar that conquered Sicily. Sicily was conquered by a great Muslim scholar. This is what we shall look at in the forthcoming lecture next week on Saturday. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.